All right, so that was the pen tool. The next tool that we have is called the transform tool. So I'm going to draw another star. Notice I like using stars to go over these modification tools. All right, so when you go to the transform tool, and I had a student who pointed this out not too long ago. They think that it's odd how when you go to this tool, it actually populates its own little interface. You see that? Let me do that again. Let me click out of it. So here's the transform tool. When I activate the transform tool, it activates its own little interface. Now, the transform tool for many years did this. This is what it did. Whoops. Did this. Is that exciting or what? Is that exciting? No, it's the same thing as the bounding box. So a lot of Adobe products were developed, or a lot of features in the Adobe products were developed, and then better tools came out, right? And so they left some of these original tools because of the legacy of the software. So at one point, there wasn't a bounding box. So if I wanted to transform an object or change its shape, I would select it and then go to this tool to distort it. Okay, then the bounding box came out and I didn't have to use this tool anymore. And it was left this way for about a decade. And then at some point, they decided to add some additional features to it. Now, one of the other features that they added is this one right here called Perspective Distort. Perspective Distort. So once I go into Transform and I go to Perspective Distort, now when I work with the bounding box, you'll notice that it creates a perspective-like effect. So that's kind of interesting. I like that. It's pretty cool. Right, let me undo. And then the other transformation that I have is called Free Distort. So when I go to Free Distort, it allows me to click on any one of the four corners, and you'll notice that it alters or changes the object as if it's being pulled in some unique perspective or along a unique angle. So that tool is kind of cool too. So I'm glad that they updated it, but you know, if you just go into the first option, the one that says Free Transform, it's basically the same thing as the bounding box. Right? Is that clear, everybody? Okay. One of the things that I'd like to point out to you, I'd like to share with you, and I've said this before, the value of these tools. Okay, so I have used Perspective Distort maybe a handful of times in my career, handful of times. The Puppet Warp tool, it just came out. I haven't really used it. Okay, Reflect, I'll be honest with you, handful of times. Rotate all the time, and Shear a handful of times. A lot of these distortion tools where I use them, or modification tools, a lot of these are in logo design. But if I'm illustrating something very specific, I don't really use these features. Or maybe I'm working with text and I want to give it some personality, and the font doesn't have italic, maybe I'll use some of these features to help me. The scale tool to me is relevant basically by activating and deactivating these options. Normally if I'm scaling, I'm using the bounding box. Okay, but I think that it's important for you to be aware of where the value lies in these features. So, you know, I think it's important to know what they do, but I would be lying to you if I said I use them all the time.